Around Kansas, brought to you by
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. Go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Well, didn't you enjoy seeing the Statehouse? I mean, it's really gorgeous. Really gorgeous. Good job, Frank.
Oh, thank you.
Now, I want to go back to, remember the story earlier in the show about my friend Tom Smith and the attack on the soldiers at Baxter Springs by Quantrill's men? Well, this next site, Fort Zarah, have you ever stopped at Fort Zarah?
No.
Yeah, it's just a picnic table now. But it's just outside of Great Bend. But Fort Zarah has a connection to the massacre at Baxter Springs, which is really interesting. And it just reminds you, I've always loved the story of Fort Zarah. My friend Michelle Martin and I wrote the book, Kansas Forts and Bases, and we talk about Fort Zarah. We argued over who was going to write about that. And Fort Zarah is only there for a short time. Like I said, there's nothing but a picnic table there now. So why would that be so fascinating? And we really did. She won. She beat me on that one. We arm wrestled or something, and she beat me on who got to write about Fort Zarah. But it's just got such a rich story. And what makes it so rich, I think, is like so many things in history, is all the connections. It's not just that little place sitting there by itself. It's all the inroads and all the connections that it takes to get there. Literally and figuratively, all the meaning that it takes on. So I have to say, Fort Zarah, the story of Fort Zarah, is one of my favorite stories in Kansas history. Let's take a look. The attack was unexpected and the troopers unprepared. Lulled into a false sense of security by the sight of Union uniforms, General James Blunt and his men never imagined the men that galloped toward them would be their undoing. When the shots rang out, the surprised Union troops scrambled to return fire. With the fog of war settling around them, Major H. Zarah Curtis fought until unhorsed. Taken prisoner, the son of General Samuel R. Curtis died at the hands of William Clark Quantrill's men at the Baxter Springs Massacre in October 1863. Newspaper accounts reported it was the largest funeral procession ever seen in his hometown of Keokuk, Iowa. By 1864, General Curtis was in command of Union forces in Kansas. Charged with protecting Kansas from Confederate invasion, Curtis also had to face the threat of Native American attacks in the western regions of the state. To aid in the protection of western Kansas, a camp was established 30 miles east of Fort Larned along Walnut Creek. Constructed of earthen dugouts and tents on a high creek bank, the post initially received its orders from Fort Larned's commanding officer. Called Camp Dunlap originally, the general renamed the outpost Fort Zarah in honor of his slain son. It later became an independent post with substantial limestone buildings. As the Civil War was winding down and the Indian Wars were heating up, the Second Colorado Cavalry was stationed at Fort Zarah. By 1869, the post was deemed obsolete. An historic marker and picnic tables offer a wayside retreat near the location. For more information, stop in the Barton County Museum nearby in Great Bend.
Well, another fun day here on Around Kansas, so we'll see you next week. Until then, I'm Frank.
I'm Deb.
And we'll see you somewhere
Around Kansas.